Fellow Ghanaians, with effect from Friday, 5th June, we will begin stage 1 of the process of easing restrictions. An abridged format for religious services can commence. 25% attendance, with a maximum number of 100 congregants, can worship at a time in church or at the mosque, with a mandatory 1-meter rule of social distancing between congregants. In addition to the mandatory wearing of masks for all persons at all times in churches and mosques, a register of names and contact details of all worshippers and hand-washing facilities and sanitizers must be provided, with a maximum duration of 1 hour for each service. Religious institutions that are desirous of opening their premises to their members, such as churches, mosques, and others, must disinfect, fumigate, and put in place the requisite logistics needed to guarantee safe opening and operationing. They must work with the designated regulatory bodies and undertake test runs of the protocols I have outlined. I would appeal to them, in the case of Christians, on the first Sunday of reopening, i.e. 7th June, in the case of the Adventists, Saturday, 6th June, and in the case of Muslims, on the first Friday, i.e. Salat al-Jum'ah, on 5th June, to dedicate their worship to prayers for the nation in these challenging times. The Minister for Religious Affairs will tomorrow, Monday, 1st June, outline in detail the specific guidelines for the safe reopening of our churches and mosques. From Monday, 15th June, the decision has been taken after engagement with the teacher unions, whose cooperation I salute, to reopen schools and universities to allow for final year, junior high, senior high, and university students to resume classes ahead of the conduct of their respective exit examinations. Indeed, final year university students are to report to their universities on 15th June. Final year senior high school SHS3 students, together with SHS2 Go Track students, on 22nd June. And final year junior high school JHS3 students on 29th June. JHS3 classes will comprise a maximum of 30 students. SHS classes a maximum of 25 students. And university lectures will take place with half the class sizes. All final year students of educational and training institutions, which are being managed by ministries other than the Education Ministry, are to return to school on 15th June to complete their exit examinations. Again, prior to the opening of schools and universities, the Ministry of Education and the heads of public and private educational institutions will fumigate and disinfect their institutions. Each student, teacher, and non-teaching staff will be provided with reusable face masks by the Ministry of Education. With the avoidance of doubt, all other educational facilities, private and public, for non-final year students will remain closed. The Minister for Education in the coming days will outline in detail the specific guidelines for the safe reopening of our schools and universities. Private burials, now with a maximum of 100 persons, can continue to be performed. Restaurants providing seated services can operate under appropriate social distancing arrangements and hygiene protocols. Individual, non-contact sports can go ahead. Conferences, workshops, weddings, and political activities, except rallies, can now take place, but with limited numbers, not exceeding 100 persons present, with the appropriate social distancing and hygiene protocols. Marketplaces, workplaces, public transport, and constitutional and statutory bodies such as the Electoral Commission, the National Commission for Civic Education, and the National Identification Authority, whose activities were exempted from the outset from these restrictions, must conduct their activities in accordance with social distancing and the necessary hygiene and safety protocols. Whilst we step up public education of the protocols and public gatherings, let me also state that regulatory agencies will undertake random checks to ensure conformity with these rules, and the security services will be tasked to enforce them. Should any institution fail to adhere to these directives, its activities will be immediately prohibited and relevant sanctions applied. I have by executive instrument provided for these new directions and extended the suspension of the remaining public gatherings as set out in EI 64 15th March until 31st July. In here, I refer to the suspension of sporting events, nightclubs, cinemas, drinking spots, bars, beaches, festivals, funerals, political rallies, and large religious gatherings such as crusades, pilgrimages, and conventions.